The candles flickered across our dining table, casting soft shadows on the wine glasses I'd polished that morning. Jazz played quietly through the speakers while I checked the roast one last time. Everything was perfect for Daniel's birthday dinner. I'd left work early to prepare his favorite meal, wanting to make this evening special after the long weeks he'd spent traveling for business. My phone buzzed just as I heard his car in the driveway. The bank's fraud department. My stomach dropped as the woman explained unusual transfers from my company account, large sums moving to offshore accounts I'd never heard of. I tried to focus on her words, but Daniel walked through the door, and something in his expression made me freeze. He wasn't smiling. He looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize, cold and detached like he was watching a stranger. Before I could speak, heavy knocking echoed through our home. 2 police officers stood on our porch, badges gleaming under the porch light. "Claire Donovan," the taller one asked, "we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of embezzlement and wire fraud." I looked at Daniel, waiting for him to defend me, to tell them this was insane. Instead, he stepped back silently as they pulled my hands behind me. The metal handcuffs clicked shut in my own living room while my husband watched without saying a word. The fluorescent lights at the police station burned my eyes as Detective Harris slid documents across the metal table. My company's accounts had been systematically emptied over 3 months, $2 million gone. Every transfer bore authorization with my digital signature, my employee ID, my security codes. The forgeries were perfect, impossibly accurate. "I didn't do this," I kept repeating, my voice cracking. "Someone's framing me, call my husband, he'll explain everything." I dialed Daniel 17 times from the station's phone. Each call went to voicemail. By midnight, they'd processed my fingerprints and photographed me like a criminal. My lawyer arrived, a tired public defender who barely looked at my case before advising me to consider a plea deal. They released me on bail the next morning. I took a taxi home, my hands still red from where the cuffs had pressed too tight. The house felt empty, though Daniel's car sat in the driveway. I found him in our bedroom, packing his clothes methodically into suitcases. "Daniel, please, we need to talk about what's happening." He handed me folded papers without meeting my eyes, a restraining order. It claimed I'd been mentally unstable for months, that he feared for his safety, that my erratic behavior had escalated. The lies were typed neatly on legal letterhead. My phone buzzed. Instagram notifications flooded my screen. Daniel and Marissa, my best friend, my business partner, smiling on a beach somewhere tropical, posted an hour ago. The sand was white, the water impossibly blue, and they looked happy. The news spread faster than I could comprehend. By Monday morning, my face was attached to headlines about corporate fraud. The company board called an emergency meeting and suspended me indefinitely without pay. My assistant wouldn't make eye contact when I came to clear my desk. My phone rang constantly, but when I answered, friends hung up or made excuses to end the conversation quickly. Nobody wanted to be associated with me. The ones who did answer asked careful questions that revealed they'd already decided I was guilty. Marissa released a statement through the company's PR team. She expressed deep sadness over my apparent mental breakdown and assured investors that the company would recover. She spoke about our friendship in past tense, like I'd already died. The media quoted her extensively, painting her as the loyal partner betrayed by a trusted friend gone rogue. I tried to post my side of the story online, but my accounts had been suspended. Someone had reported me for harassment. Every platform showed the same message: violation of community standards. I'd been digitally erased. My parents called that evening. They'd seen the news. My father's voice was stiff, formal. "Claire, we think you should get professional help. Daniel sent us some concerning emails you'd written." I'd never written any emails. They didn't believe me. The call ended with my mother crying and my father telling me not to contact them until I got treatment. That night an envelope appeared on my doorstep. No postage, no return address. Inside was a photocopy of one of the forged signatures, my handwriting captured perfectly. Underneath, someone had written in red ink, "You should have paid more attention." I returned to the house 3 days later with a police escort to collect my belongings. Daniel had changed the locks. The officer made him open the door, but Daniel stood in the doorway blocking my path, claiming I could only take personal items according to his lawyer's instructions. The living room looked different. Our wedding photos were gone from the mantel. In their place sat cardboard boxes labelled with my name in Daniel's neat handwriting, lined up by the door. When I looked inside, I found my clothes thrown in carelessly, some still on hangers, others wrinkled and mixed with random items from my desk. "I've already packed what's yours," Daniel said flatly. "Everything else stays." "This is my house too. I'm on the deed." "Actually, you'll find I refinanced last year. The house is in my name now. You signed the papers, don't you remember?" His smile was thin and cruel. I didn't remember signing anything, but apparently I had. The officer helped me carry the boxes to my car. Rain had started, soaking through the cardboard. As I lifted the last box, our wedding photo slid out onto the wet driveway, the one where we were laughing, where everything still felt real. I bent to pick it up, and that's when I saw her. Marissa stood in the upstairs bedroom window, Daniel's bedroom, our bedroom. She wore one of my robes. She saw me looking and didn't move, didn't hide. She just stared back, her expression unreadable, before slowly drawing the curtain closed. I couldn't stop thinking about the beginning, trying to find the moment everything went wrong. Marissa and I met freshman year of college, bonded over terrible dining hall coffee and shared business classes. We'd been inseparable, studying together, traveling together, standing beside each other at our weddings. She introduced me to Daniel at a conference 5 years ago. "He's perfect for you," she'd insisted. Ambitious, smart, stable. I'd trusted her judgment completely. When Daniel and I got engaged, Marissa was my maid of honor. When we started our consulting firm, she was my first call. Looking back now, I saw patterns I'd missed. Every major financial decision I'd made, Marissa had been there offering advice. When I'd worried about combining finances with Daniel, she'd encouraged it. "Marriage is partnership," she'd said. "You have to trust completely." When Daniel suggested I make him an authorized signer on my business accounts for emergency access, Marissa had agreed it was smart planning. She'd been so helpful when I'd struggled with the company's new accounting software, even setting up my passwords for me. "Use something you'll remember," she'd suggested. I'd used my mother's maiden name combined with our wedding date. Simple, memorable. I dug through old text messages, searching for something I couldn't name. Then I found it buried in an archived thread from 3 years ago. Daniel had texted Marissa, "Once she trusts us completely, it'll be easy." Marissa had responded with a simple thumbs-up emoji. 3 years ago, they'd been planning this before Daniel and I were even married. I'd been living in my college roommate's spare room for 2 weeks when reality fully settled in. My bank accounts were frozen, my salary stopped, and every credit card was maxed or closed. The money I'd saved for years had vanished into the same offshore accounts the police claimed I'd created. I tried to hire a lawyer, calling every firm in the city. Each conversation ended the same way. They'd review my case, see the paper trail, and politely decline. One lawyer was more honest than the others. "Ms. Donovan, the evidence against you is overwhelming. Forged signatures are one thing, but the digital trail shows your IP address, your login credentials, your security answers. If you actually didn't do this, then someone had complete access to your entire digital life." "My husband did, and my business partner." "Then they'd need your passwords, your security questions, He stopped. "How long have they had access?" "Years." The silence stretched long. "Ms. Donovan, if what you're saying is true, they didn't just steal from you recently. They've been planning this for years. You weren't their partner, you were always the mark." He declined my case anyway, too risky for his firm's reputation. I hung up and stared at the wall of my borrowed room, understanding for the first time the full scope of what had been done to me. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. This was a long con, and I'd been the perfect victim, trusting, successful, and completely blind. The call came from a blocked number on a Thursday afternoon. A woman's voice, nervous and quick. "Ms. Donovan, this is Patricia Wells from First National. I shouldn't be calling you, but something's been bothering me about your case." I sat up straighter, gripping the phone. "What is it?" One of the transfers, the largest one, actually, came from an IP address that doesn't match any of your usual locations. It was made from a hotel downtown, the Riverside Inn, but according to the timestamp, you were in the hospital that day. My mind raced backward. The food poisoning, March 15th. "That's the date, yes. I thought you should know. I can't testify or anything, my supervisor would fire me, but I just thought someone should look into it." After she hung up, I pulled up my medical records from that day. I'd gotten violently ill during lunch, vomiting, dizziness, unable to stand. Marissa had driven me to the emergency room, staying with me for hours. The doctor had suspected food poisoning from the soup I'd eaten. The soup Marissa had brought me. Marissa, who'd insisted I eat it while it was hot, who'd watched me finish the entire bowl before she'd even started her salad. Marissa, who'd seemed so concerned when I'd started feeling sick, who'd helped me to her car and driven me straight to the hospital. While I'd been unconscious in the ER, someone had logged into my company account from a hotel and transferred $600,000 to an offshore account. I pulled up the hospital's toxicology report, standard food poisoning panels, but there, buried in the detailed results, was a note I'd never noticed: trace amounts of sedative detected, patient reports no medication use, possible accidental ingestion. Not accidental, deliberate. I needed proof. The toxicology report wasn't enough. People would say I'd taken the sedatives myself. I tracked down the doctor who treated me that day, calling his office repeatedly until he agreed to a 5-minute phone consultation. "Dr. Phillips, this is Claire Donovan. You treated me for food poisoning last March, but the tox screen showed sedatives." "I remember," he said carefully. "We noted it in your chart. You said you hadn't taken anything." "I hadn't. Someone drugged me. The person who brought me the soup. She needed me unconscious so she could access my accounts." The silence lasted too long. "Ms. Donovan, those are serious accusations." "I'm not making accusations. I'm stating facts. Can you confirm the sedatives were present in my system?" "Yes, enough to cause significant drowsiness and disorientation. Combined with whatever caused the gastrointestinal distress, it would have left you quite incapacitated for several hours." I thanked him and hung up, my hands shaking. It wasn't enough proof for court, but it was enough for me to know the truth. They poisoned me. Marissa had drugged me, driven me to the hospital, and then either she or Daniel had used my credentials to steal money while I was unconscious. When I got back to my borrowed room, the door was ajar. I'd locked it. I always locked it now. Inside, everything looked normal at first, until I realized my laptop was gone. The laptop that contained my personal files, my research, my documentation of everything I'd discovered. Someone had been in my room, someone who knew I was getting close. The police detective assigned to my case barely looked up when I reported the break-in. Nothing else was taken, just a laptop. That laptop had evidence. Evidence of what? Your own embezzlement. He closed his notepad. "Ms. Donovan, I understand you're under stress, but filing false reports won't help your case." I left the station feeling more alone than ever. That evening my phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello, Claire." Daniel's voice was smooth, almost friendly. "I heard you've been asking questions." "You broke into my room." "I didn't break into anything. You really should be more careful with your keys, they're easy to copy." He paused. "Listen to me carefully. Stop digging, you're not ready for what you'll find. Take the plea deal, do your time. Move on with whatever's left of your life. You're not going to get away with this." "We already have." His voice hardened. "You signed everything, Claire, every document, every transfer authorization, your passwords, your security questions, your fingerprints on the paperwork. You built this trap yourself, one trusting decision at a time." In the background I heard it, Marissa's distinctive laugh, bright and careless. They were together, probably celebrating. Celebrating what they'd taken from me. The call ended. I sat in the dark, my phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the silence. I started recording myself every day, documenting everything I remembered, everything I discovered. If something happened to me, I wanted evidence that I'd been sane, that I'd been fighting back. The videos were rambling, desperate, but they were proof that I hadn't given up. My parents had stopped taking my calls entirely. Daniel had sent them medical records, forged, obviously, showing I'd been treated for depression and anxiety. He'd included emails I'd supposedly written, filled with paranoid accusations and erratic thinking. None of it was real, but it looked real enough that my own mother believed I was having a breakdown. I had nobody. No family, no friends, no money, no credibility. Some nights I wondered if Daniel was right. Maybe I should just accept the plea deal, serve my time and disappear. It would be easier than fighting. But then I'd remember Marissa standing in my bedroom window wearing my robe. I'd remember Daniel's cold eyes as they handcuffed me. I'd remember every lie, every manipulation, every carefully constructed moment of this trap. One night, reviewing my daily recordings, I noticed something strange. In the video from 3 days earlier, there was a shadow moving behind me, visible in the reflection of the window behind my shoulder. I'd been alone in the room, or I'd thought I was. I watched it again, zooming in. The shadow was person-shaped, standing just outside the frame. Someone had been in the room while I recorded, staying perfectly still, watching me talk to the camera. They were still watching me, even now. The coffee shop was crowded enough to feel safe. Noah Richardson sat across from me, his press credentials visible on the lanyard around his neck. He'd reached out through an encrypted email service, saying he was researching corporate fraud patterns, and my case had caught his attention. "I've seen this before," he said, sliding a folder across the table. "Different victims, same pattern. Shell companies, forged documents, intimate partner fraud. Your ex-husband's business ventures keep appearing in the background of these cases." I opened the folder. 6 other women, all with similar stories. All had been married to or partnered with businessmen in Daniel's network. All had been accused of crimes they claimed they didn't commit. Why hasn't anyone connected this? Because the victims look guilty, the paper trail is perfect, and by the time they realize what's happened, they're too destroyed to fight back effectively. Noah leaned forward. "But you're still fighting, that's why I wanted to talk to you." "Can you help me?" "I can investigate. But Claire, you need to understand, if we dig into this, we won't just expose Daniel. These shell companies tie to some very wealthy, very connected people. We'll be going after something much bigger than one marriage fraud." I thought about the shadow in my window, the stolen laptop, the 3 years of planning that had gone into destroying me. "I don't care how big it is, I want them exposed." Noah smiled for the first time. "Then let's get to work." It took Noah 3 weeks to trace the shell companies. Each account led to another, a maze of offshore holdings and fake business entities. But buried in the financial records were patterns, money flowing in consistent amounts, on predictable schedules, always through accounts that had been opened with stolen identities. Then we found Marissa's name. Not hidden but buried deep enough that casual investigation wouldn't catch it. She opened 7 different accounts using variations of my personal information, my mother's maiden name, my childhood address, my first pet's name, information only someone close to me would know. "She's been stealing your identity for years," Noah explained, his laptop screen filled with financial documents. "Every account uses some piece of your personal data. She built this framework long before the major theft." But the last account we traced wasn't offshore. It was domestic, opened at a local bank 5 years ago. The name on the account was Daniel's father, Harrison Donovan, and the password recovery question was answered with my late mother's maiden name. "They involved his family," I whispered. "This wasn't just Daniel and Marissa, his father knew." Noah pulled up more records. "Harrison Donovan has been running these schemes for decades. Small-scale stuff mostly. Your case is the biggest one yet." He looked at me seriously. "Claire, Daniel learned this from his father. This is what they do." I felt sick. I'd met Harrison dozens of times. He'd given a toast at my wedding. He'd called me daughter. Harrison Donovan lived in a mansion on the north side of town, the kind of wealth that came from old money and careful investments, or from decades of fraud. I showed up without calling, knowing he wouldn't agree to see me otherwise. He answered the door himself, unsurprised to see me. "Claire, I wondered when you'd figure it out." "You knew the whole time." He stepped aside, letting me into his marble foyer. "Daniel always thought you were too idealistic to survive in business, too trusting, too soft." He poured himself a drink, not offering me one. "This was the only way he'd win. You understand that, don't you? He couldn't compete with you legitimately. You were always smarter, more creative, so he found another way." "By destroying me. By taking what should have been his from the start. You built that company with his seed money, his connections. He just took back what was his." I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make him hurt the way I hurt. Instead, I kept my voice steady. "And Marissa." A convenient tool. Daniel needed someone on the inside. Harrison smiled coldly. "She'll be gone soon enough. Once the heat dies down, he'll discard her the same way he discarded you." The words slipped out so casually, so carelessly. "She'll be gone soon enough. Not fired, not left, gone." "What do you mean, gone?" Harrison's smile faded as he realized his mistake. He set down his glass. "I think you should leave now, Claire." I left, but I'd heard enough. Marissa was Daniel's partner. She was another victim, and her expiration date was approaching. For the first time since my arrest, I stopped crying and started planning. I'd spent weeks grieving what I'd lost. Now it was time to take back what was mine. Noah connected me with Myra Chen. No, I couldn't use that name. Myra Torres, a cybersecurity expert who specialized in digital forensics. She'd helped expose fraud cases before, always working just inside the legal boundaries. "You want me to hack your ex-husband," she said flatly when we met. "I want you to recover my stolen property," I corrected. "Everything in those accounts was mine. I just need proof of how it got there." But Myra studied me for a long moment. "This could take months, and it won't be cheap. Noah's publication is funding it. Consider it an investment in a future story." She agreed. Over the next 6 weeks, Myra worked through layers of digital security while Noah traced financial patterns, and I documented everything. Every lie, every theft, every manipulation. We built a case slowly, carefully, making sure every piece of evidence was legitimate and legally obtained. Then Myra found the file. Buried in Daniel's cloud storage, hidden behind multiple layers of encryption, was a document titled Contingency Plan. Inside was a detailed strategy for staging an accidental overdose, prescription pills that could be traced to my supposed depression, a timeline that would make it look like suicide, and notes about ensuring my death would close the investigation into the embezzlement. The target name on the document was mine. The date was next month. Daniel wasn't just planning to ruin me, he was planning to kill me. The launch party for Donovan and Associates, the company built from my stolen assets, was held at the Riverside Hotel ballroom. 200 guests, champagne fountains, and a string quartet. Daniel and Marissa stood together greeting guests, playing the role of successful business partners. Nobody mentioned me or the trial that was still pending. Noah had gotten me a job with the catering company. In a white serving uniform with my hair pulled back, I was invisible. Just another server carrying trays of champagne and appetizers. I moved through the crowd, listening to conversations, watching Daniel and Marissa play their parts. The company's server room was on the 3rd floor, accessed through the kitchen. During a champagne refill, I slipped away, climbing the service stairs. Myra had created a flash drive loaded with extraction software. All I needed was 30 seconds. The server room was locked, but Myra had also provided a bypass card cloned from the hotel system. The door clicked open. Inside, rows of servers hummed quietly. I found the main terminal, inserted the flash drive, and watched the progress bar crawl across the screen. 20 seconds, 25. The software was downloading their entire database, client lists, financial records, communication logs, everything. Downstairs, I heard Daniel's voice over the speaker system beginning his toast. "To a future without ghosts," he said, and the crowd laughed. The download completed. I pocketed the flash drive and slipped back downstairs just as Daniel finished speaking. Our eyes met across the ballroom for just a moment, but he didn't recognize me. I was nobody to him now, just a server, just a ghost. The data was everything we'd hoped for and more. Falsified contracts, client funds diverted to personal accounts, proof that Daniel had been running the same scheme on his current clients that he'd run on me. And buried in his personal emails, detailed discussions with Marissa about drugging me, forging my signatures, and timing the theft perfectly. Noah wanted to release everything immediately. I told him to wait. "Why?" he demanded. "We have everything we need to bury them." "Because I want them to feel it first. I want them to know it's coming." 2 days later, I received a message on a burner phone from an unknown number. "He did it to me too," it said. Attached was a photo, Daniel with another woman, intimate and casual, the kind of photo you take when you think you're in private. The woman's name was Vanessa Park. She'd been Daniel's assistant before Marissa and I started the company. According to the message, Daniel had run the same con on her 3 years earlier, stolen her savings, destroyed her credit, disappeared when she started asking questions. She'd never reported it because he'd threatened to claim she'd embezzled from him. I called the number. Vanessa answered immediately. "How many of us are there?" I asked. "At least 4 that I've found," she said. "Daniel runs the same playbook every time. Find a successful woman, gain her trust, isolate her, steal everything, then destroy her credibility so thoroughly that nobody believes her when she finally speaks up. Will you testify? If you promise me he'll actually face consequences this time, I can't go through this again just to watch him walk away." "I promised," I said. "This time he falls." The investigation came faster than I expected. Noah's first article dropped on a Monday morning. Corporate fraud ring targets successful women. He didn't name Daniel directly, but he didn't have to. The shell companies, the pattern of behavior, the offshore accounts, anyone who knew the case could connect the dots. By Tuesday, federal investigators had seized Daniel's business records. By Wednesday, his investors were demanding answers. The company's stock, such as it was, plummeted. Marissa stopped answering her phone. I watched it unfold from my borrowed room, Noah sending me updates hourly. Daniel tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, but too many people were asking questions now. The other victims had started coming forward, adding their voices to mine. Friday evening, my phone rang. Marissa's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Claire, her voice was thick with tears. Please, I need to talk to you. Why would I talk to you? Because you were right about him. You were right about everything, please. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. We chose a public place, a coffee shop near the courthouse, the same place I'd first met with Noah. Marissa arrived looking hollow, wearing no makeup, her usual polish completely gone. He's going to blame me for everything, she said without preamble. He's already started. His lawyers are building a case that I manipulated him, that I forged the documents, that I seduced him to gain access to your company. She laughed bitterly. 3 years I spent helping him destroy you, and now he's doing the same thing to me. Marissa talked for 2 hours, and I recorded every word on my phone with her full knowledge. She confessed to drugging me, forging my signatures, and helping Daniel steal my money. She explained how Harrison had taught Daniel the con, how they'd practiced on smaller targets first, how I'd been the biggest score yet. I thought we were building something together, she said. He promised we'd leave after we had enough money, start over somewhere new, but he was lying. He's been seeing someone else for months, and now that the investigation is happening, he's ready to throw me away. You helped him destroy me, I said coldly. You were my best friend. I know, tears ran down her face. I tell myself I didn't understand what we were really doing, but that's a lie. I knew. I just didn't care because I wanted the money more than I valued our friendship. And now I have nothing. He took everything from me too. It was hard to feel sympathy for her, but I understood the pattern now. Daniel didn't just steal money. He stole trust, relationships, entire lives. Marissa had been both accomplice and victim, though she'd been a willing accomplice until it turned on her. The prosecutors want you to testify, I said. Tell them everything you told me. Give them documentation. They'll offer you a deal, reduced charges in exchange for testimony against Daniel and his father. Why would you help me after what I did? I'm not helping you, I'm using you. I stood to leave. You're going to help me destroy him completely. That's your only chance at any kind of redemption. The audio file I'd recorded was labeled insurance. I sent copies to Noah, to Myra, and to my own lawyer. Whatever happened next, the truth was documented. The federal raid happened on a Tuesday morning. I watched from across the street as agents in blue windbreakers swarmed Daniel's office building. They carried boxes of evidence, hard drives, filing cabinets. The news cameras arrived within minutes, filming Daniel being led out in handcuffs. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. Daniel being arrested the same way I'd been, in front of witnesses, his reputation collapsing in real time. He scanned the crowd of onlookers, and his eyes found mine across the street. For a long moment we just stared at each other. Then he mouthed 2 words, "You did this." I nodded, yes, I did. The charges were extensive: wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering. Harrison was arrested the same day. The FBI had traced the scheme back 15 years, finding dozens of victims. What Daniel had done to me was just the latest iteration of his father's long-running con. Marissa testified in exchange for immunity. She provided documentation of everything: bank records, forged signatures, email threads planning the theft. She admitted to drugging me, explained how they'd timed the major transfers, and confirmed Harrison's involvement. The trial lasted 3 months. I attended every day, sitting in the gallery, watching Daniel's empire disassemble piece by piece. His lawyers tried to claim I'd been complicit, that I'd helped plan the theft to frame him later. But there were too many other victims, too much evidence, too many contradictions in Daniel's story. The jury convicted him on all counts. Daniel's desperation became apparent during sentencing. His lawyers filed motion after motion, trying to delay the inevitable. When those failed, he turned on Marissa completely. In court, he claimed she'd manipulated him, seduced him, forced him to participate in her schemes. He painted himself as another victim, a faithful husband corrupted by a manipulative woman. His lawyers presented forged emails supposedly showing Marissa threatening him, manipulated text messages, fabricated evidence. It didn't work. The prosecutors tore apart his lies systematically. But the accusation had its intended effect. Marissa's immunity deal was put under review. Her assets were frozen pending investigation into exactly how much she'd personally profited. I watched as everything she'd stolen, every dollar she'd taken from me was seized. Her apartment, her car, her jewelry, all confiscated. She lost everything overnight just as I had. The difference was that she'd earned her destruction. That evening I received a text from an unknown number. "He'll come for you next. Watch your back." I showed it to the FBI agent assigned to my case. "Daniel's in custody," he said. "He can't hurt you." But the next day, Daniel was gone. He'd somehow acquired a fake passport while awaiting sentencing and had fled during a supervised medical appointment. The manhunt began immediately, but Daniel had disappeared. And I started receiving photos of my current address, my borrowed room, my daily routines. Someone was watching me again. Noah insisted I go into hiding. He offered me his sister's cabin upstate, a place off the grid where I could wait until Daniel was recaptured. I refused. "I've spent months hiding, months afraid, months letting him control my life even from a distance," I said. "I'm done running." Instead, I stayed visible. I continued attending court hearings for Harrison's trial. I gave interviews to journalists documenting the case. I made sure Daniel knew exactly where I was and what I was doing. The confrontation came on a Thursday evening. I just left the courthouse when Daniel appeared in the parking garage. He looked different, thinner, unshaven, desperate. Nothing like the polished man who'd watched me get arrested in our living room. "You should have just stayed gone," he whispered, moving toward me. "We gave you an out. We gave you the chance to disappear quietly. You could have served your time and moved on. You tried to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. You stole my money, my reputation, my life. I took what should have been mine from the start. You never deserved any of it." His hand moved toward his jacket, and I saw the outline of something metallic. "Are you going to kill me, Daniel? Here in a courthouse parking garage with security cameras everywhere." He froze. I pointed up at the cameras, at the security guard walking rounds 2 floors above us, at the police car visible through the garage entrance. "You can't win this," I said. "You've already lost. The only question is whether you want to add murder to your charges or turn yourself in." He ran. Security caught him before he reached the exit. This time there would be no bail, no passport, no escape. The file I'd planted months ago activated automatically at midnight. Myra had designed it to release on a specific date, today, regardless of what happened to me. Every major news outlet received the complete documentation of Daniel's crimes simultaneously. Financial records, email threads, victim testimonies, audio recordings, the contingency plan document outlining my planned overdose, everything we'd gathered over months of investigation, all released at once. I watched the news coverage from my borrowed room. Daniel's face flashed across every channel. Businessman caught in multi-million fraud and murder plot. The story went viral within hours. Social media exploded with commentary. People who'd believed Daniel's version of events suddenly understood they'd been fooled. My name was cleared publicly, not just legally. The narrative shifted completely. I wasn't the unstable ex-wife who'd embezzled from her company. I was the victim of an elaborate con, the woman who'd fought back against a system designed to silence her. Companies called offering consulting jobs. Victims' rights organizations asked me to speak. Publishers wanted book deals. The attention was overwhelming, but it was vindication. Everything Daniel had taken, my reputation, my credibility, my career, was being restored. Harrison's trial concluded the next week. Guilty on all counts, father and son would serve their sentences in the same federal facility. Their legacy of fraud finally ended. Marissa disappeared after the sentencing. I heard she'd moved to another state, changed her name, started over. I hoped the guilt followed her wherever she went. Daniel's empire collapsed completely. The company was liquidated to pay restitution to victims. His properties were seized and sold. Every asset he'd accumulated through years of fraud was stripped away and redistributed. I received a check from the restitution fund. Not everything I'd lost, but enough to rebuild. More importantly, I received something else: control. Control over my story, my life, my future. Everything he'd stolen, I was taking back piece by piece. Marissa's testimony was televised. She broke down on the stand, detailing every crime, every manipulation. Some people saw her tears as genuine remorse. I saw them as grief for her own losses, not for what she'd done to me. But her testimony sealed Daniel's fate permanently. Life sentences weren't common for fraud cases, but attempted murder changed everything. The trial became a national story. News outlets dissected every detail: the long con, the multiple victims, the family business of destruction. Daniel's face became synonymous with intimate partner fraud. Universities studied the case. Law enforcement updated their training protocols. I watched from the gallery as the judge handed down the sentence. 25 years for Daniel, 18 for Harrison. The courtroom erupted in whispers, but I sat silent. No amount of prison time could restore what they'd taken, the years of my life spent trusting people who were systematically destroying me. But it was something. It was justice, imperfect but real. As the bailiffs led Daniel away, he turned back one last time. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I expected anger, defiance, or hatred. Instead, I saw nothing. He'd become empty, hollowed out by his own greed.